Welcome to the Sunday worship service of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. I'm John Sallee, the newest member of the First UU Worship Associate Team and an aspirant for ordination as a Unitarian Universalist minister. Unitarian Universalists acknowledge that the divine can be called many names: God, Allah, Dharmakaya, light, creative order, sacred mystery, friend, community, and many others, and that each of those is insufficient to reach beyond the limits of language to the full meaning intended. So we are committed to divinity as process and as a presence in our community, regardless of how we each name it. Our meeting house, while mostly virtual for now, and which we humbly acknowledge is physically situated in and built on unceded Abenaki land, serves as a sacred gathering space for the members and friends of this congregation and all who hope for and commit to creating a world of kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity for all beings. You are welcome here, and we are grateful for your participation in this worship. We are also grateful today for the gifts of musicians Sam Whitesell and James Stewart, and also for James' video production, and the wisdom of FUUSB board members and the Healthy Congregations team. To learn more about our faith, our meeting house, and our society and its activities, you can click the link in YouTube or explore our website, uusociety.org. Let us know you're visiting. We welcome the opportunity to welcome you personally. The gong sounding and chalice lighting signals our shared centering practice and a beginning to this worship. Feel free to gather the flame however you will, with your own candle, chalice, or intention, and know that while separated by time and space, we are united by spirit and care. We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Patricia Hart, and this is Covenant Sunday, the final Sunday in our month of in-gathering. Our work today is to celebrate this congregation coming together again at the beginning of yet another new congregational year. Coming together stressed in this uncertain time and strong. Coming together and changing with creativity and courage and persistence, and also grief for all that seems lost and at risk. Today we are celebrating what the society is, what binds us together, as it is expressed, as it has been expressed, not in set in stone, but in beautifully crafted words as the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington's Covenant, which was developed and accepted by the congregation about 10 years ago. In this service, the covenant will be explored by the members of the Healthy Congregations team and in a story, an old story that I know as Desert Pete, which was immortalized in song by the Kingston Trio, if you're old enough to remember them, and retold today by Erika, Reif, and myself, though we've let board members do the hard work of explaining what the story and the society's commitments have to do with one another. We are celebrating this congregation in this service with pictures of the society's families, lots of people, almost 80 of you, whose pictures we'll see later. Pictures that you've sent in over the last few weeks, which are beautiful. It seems to me so important in these times when gathering together physically isn't safe that we see who we are. So even though we're at the end of Ingathering Month, we're not going to stop collecting pictures. We're going to keep on taking in pictures from those of you we haven't heard from yet, and we'll keep reminding you because it would be wonderful to have images of everybody. If you don't want to share an image of your face, you can send an image of something else that represents you. Even those of you who are far away from here, if you're watching this service, you're part of this congregation, and it would be wonderful to see you. And tonight actually, is Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish year, the end of the high holy days, when all of us are called to account, to ask forgiveness, to make amends, to begin again with a clean heart and an open mind, ready for all that life will offer, all that life will challenge us with in this new year. To begin, to dare to hope, and to act. In that spirit is our call to worship today, which was inspired by the Reverend Maureen Kaloran. Every line of the call to worship ends, "We light a chalice," and you are welcome to say that refrain with me. For every time we make a mistake and decide to start again, we light a chalice. For every time we are lonely and allow someone to be our friend, we light a chalice. For every time we are disappointed and choose to hope, we light a chalice. For every time we are overwhelmed by fear and we choose nevertheless to have faith, we light a chalice. For all the times we feel inadequate and hold one another accountable to our best aspirations, we light a chalice. The Tale of Desert Pete. Many years ago, a weary traveler hiked for miles across the desert with the hot sun beating down on them. Their water supply was long gone.
If I don't find water soon, I'll surely die. Wait, what's that?
In the distance, the travelers spotted something. They got closer and saw it was an old well. The traveler frantically pumped the handle of the well to draw water, but all that came from the pump was dust. Then they noticed a tin can tied to the pump. There was a note inside. The note said, "Dear stranger, this pump is all right as of June 1932. I put a new sucker washer in it and it should last for quite a few years. But the washer dries out and the pump needs to be primed. Under the white rock, I buried a jar of water out of the sun and corked up. Ahem. There's enough water in it to prime the pump, but not if you drink some first.
Maybe just a little?
Pour about a quarter of the water into the pump and let her soak for a minute to wet the leather washer.
But I'm so thirsty.
Then pour the rest, medium fast, and pump hard.
What if it doesn't work?
You'll have water. Have faith. This well has never run dry."
Water, sweet water.
When you get watered up, fill the bottle and put it back as you found it for the next stranger who comes this way. Signed, Desert Pete.
Better fill up that bottle.
The end.
Hey, hello, everybody. This is Dan House, the chairman of your First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington board. And with me are several other board members.
This is Hope Baker-Carr.
I'm Louis deRosset.
Rebecca Gurney.
Leandre Waldo.
So Reverend Patricia gave us this story, and it seems like so often when a sermon starts or a story starts that's got a point, I always wonder to myself, how is this going to come back around? How is she going to bring this? How is she going to bring this in? What did you guys get from the story? I'm curious.
Dan, what I liked about the story was that the person who started it set up this system of cooperation among a bunch of people who are never going to meet. And each of the people who are cooperating to help all of the others has to do it with the certainty that they're never going to meet the people who have helped them, and they're never going to meet the people they're helping. So Pete says they have to have faith, and there's a very real sense in which that is the case.
I think that's so interesting, Louis. I guess I was thinking, that this whole notion of covenant comes up in this story. It's, at the place where the person can be thirsty or they can water the pump part, they're kind of being called upon to listen to their better angel in a way that is maybe more rare these days than we would like to see. And, the covenant opportunity is for us to think about those people who are coming after us, even 50 years after us and 100 years after us. And I guess I just really appreciate the way the story brought that out.
Yeah, and I just was looking at the first person. The first person really has to sacrifice themselves to have something better happen in the future. They have to go thirsty for a while, and but with the knowing that down the way they're going to get what they need, and it's going to feed so many more people.
For me, it really felt like a story about the value of patience and a belief in patience and a commitment to patience of everybody who came before. And that to me feels like a lot of what covenant or agreement is. It's a belief in ourselves and the people who came before. And I think it was, as Louis said, people who will never meet.
That's great. Thank you. It really does make me feel connected to the people of our congregation from 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Someone built this building a long time ago. They've maintained it over the years, people who are no longer with us. Some people even who have been with us for a long time. And it makes me excited also about, the little kids that are in our congregation now that are going to be here. Who's going to be board president in 20, 30, 40 years? Who's going to be here in 100 years? It's kind of fun not knowing who those people are, but knowing that we're doing something that will preserve this community. So I'm excited about it. I think it definitely came back around. That was an amazing story. So thank you, Reverend Patricia, for sharing that one with us.
Having entered this worship, we once again center our intentions to offer and lay bare our joys and sorrows on the altar of divine community. Gratitude for the spectacularly caring and hard-working educators across the state that have engaged students in a new school year. Sadness for the loss of Dan Murdoch on Monday afternoon, the last day of summer. We recognize that not all joys and sorrows can be confined by words. Fewer can be spoken, and fewer still spoken publicly here. In the silence that follows, before James leads us through the next hymn, please join me in holding those offered, spoken and unspoken, known and unknown, in our collective meditative embrace. May the joys and sorrows of each be the joys and sorrows of all, reminding us of our shared humanity.
Every Sunday, right in the middle of our worship service together, we take up an offering. We do this to remind ourselves every single week that this society exists because there are people who believe it matters and are willing to share of their resources to make sure that the congregation continues. All of you. We also do it to remember that generosity is part of our identity as Unitarian Universalists. We don't just keep things for ourselves, we share with the world. And we remember that by giving away half of every week's offering. This week, the beneficiary of our Share the Plate collection will be the Unitarian Universalist Association Disaster Relief Fund. I'm sure you know how often it is that congregations all around the country and in other countries too find themselves in a disaster, building disaster or something else that happens because of fire or storm or other actions that are beyond their control. We are in covenant. We, this congregation, are in covenant with all of the other congregations in the UUA. And so it is right that we help when we can, that we share what we can. Your gift this morning will make a difference in so many ways. Thank you for your generosity and your faith and your gifts. Will you say with me the words of dedication for this morning's offering? With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission, to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice.
My name is Marty Garrett, and I'm a member of the Healthy Congregations team. Today, we're going to explore the Covenant for the Society. The Covenant was developed approximately a decade ago. Here it is. Today, we gather together with the intention of creating a vibrant, healthy, liberal religious community. To this end, we make the following commitments to each other. Number one, to come with open minds and hearts so that we can welcome new ideas, new people, and new possibilities. Number two, to listen carefully to each other, to speak openly and respectfully, and to assume good intentions, especially in times of disagreement. Number three, to participate actively in the life of the society by being present, serving, volunteering, and providing financial support. We recognize that there will be times when we fall short of these ideals. We will be accountable to each other and forgiving of each other.
Hello, I'm Brian Haas, and my role today is to describe the history of our covenant. It may seem at times that the songs we sing, the rituals we enjoy, and the way we organize ourselves as Unitarian Universalists is set in stone, and things have been this way forever. But in fact, These elements of our lives together have been created and modified to fulfill specific purposes as a result of our congregational experience. Some of you may not know that the covenant we are discussing today is a more recent development of our congregational life. My wife Susie and I have been members of this society for more than 30 years, and we've treasured these years for the support that we have received and the opportunities that we have had to give back to this exceptional organization. But not all of these years have been easy. In the years around 2009, 2010, as one of our longtime ministers was retiring after years of service, there developed a lot of conflict in the membership on how best to choose a new minister. What had once been a UU society of harmony and cooperation became a divided community with individual members taking sides. The difficult discussions that followed were often heated, and in fact, sometimes they turned unkind and even threatening between members that took sides in the situation. Over time, many members felt hurt. Some left the society and didn't come back. Others stayed away for extended periods before returning. All of these people were committed UUs. They were committed to our principles, but they were injured by a flawed process of managing conflict. It became clear that there was a need for some guidelines on how we could manage similar situations if they arose in the future. That original covenant document was developed by a small task force and then presented to the Board of Trustees for review. Subsequently, it was presented to the members in a service like this one, and we were all encouraged to sign a copy of the covenant. This action was intended to show that we would conduct ourselves in a respectful manner that would preserve the integrity of each individual member and the societal fabric at the same time. The covenant document became a guide for how we would conduct ourselves, not only in good times, but also in times of conflict and disagreement. And now the Healthy Congregation team has been asked to refresh the covenant document and present it to you for our use in our continuing relationships. As before, it is not set in stone, but is a living document to be used and modified when necessary. We ask you to read it, understand it, put it into practice. This document is the proverbial ounce of prevention that is worth a pound of cure and is intended to help us stay in relationship and fully support one another as we grow together. This is especially important to me and my family because we find that the FUUSB is a key element in our sense of community and support here in Burlington. We plan to use the covenant to guide our actions so that we can stay in supportive relationship with each of and all of you in good times as well as the tough times of conflict. I hope this description has helped you to understand the history of our covenant and why it remains an important element for our society. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Nancy Helen. I use she, her pronouns. I am glad to be with you today in reflecting on covenant. Having been a member of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington for over 20 years, I cherish the society as a place to continue to explore my faith and grow as a community member. I do so in this community that bases its principles on the worth and dignity of all in the interconnectedness to community in the world we live in. For me, covenant is a statement of the values the members of a community share. And the verb part of covenant is the values in action. What we do, how we interact, how we make decisions, and how we grow. Our covenant asserts that we listen carefully, speak openly and respectfully, and assume good intentions, especially in times of disagreement. During coffee hour, committee work, voting on the budget, there have been times that I have wondered how I am reacting to differences and disagreements. I have occasionally gone home shaking my head, wondering how a committee has gotten to such a contentious place, and how will we move forward? What is my part? How do I follow up? How do I ask to regroup? Or just sit with the unsettled feelings? One thing I feel I am learning about Covenant is people listen and disagree differently. For some, speaking over each other is fairly normal, where I find it difficult to find a pause in a conversation where I feel comfortable to interject. These communication differences, big and small, can influence our way of being together. This is just one example, how complex communication is and how we are in covenant. Am I opening the space to others so that they can speak openly and can listen? The key for me seems to assume good intentions. Our FUUSB covenant also asserts we welcome new ideas, new people, new possibilities. So how welcoming are we? This question has been a meandering theme throughout much of my time here. I have come to the belief that welcoming is built in small actions, as well as making connections in the broader sense of community, the neighborhood, the area. Welcoming needs to be intentional, updated, and newly discovered by learning about how we do and how we act are felt by all as our principles upholds the worth and dignity of all. Am I open to change that may come when new ideas are adopted? Will I stretch myself and not center on me when a new possibility comes to this faith community? The covenant is asking this of me. Am I being accountable to the covenant? And will you all of FUUSB hold me accountable and each other? I end with the words from Michelle Ma from last week's service. Now is a time to turn to new habits, new ways of fellowship, welcoming, inclusivity, show up as ourselves. That is beloved community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Noah Patullo. My relationship with covenants has always been a bit contentious. I grew up in this congregation, progressing through RE, ultimately graduating from youth group, and look, I'm still here. As each year rolled around, inevitably, one of the first things we'd do was write a covenant, or to be more precise, our RE leaders would make us write one. As a bunch of rowdy youngsters counting down the minutes until snack, creating a covenant wasn't our plan. And our group brainstorming sessions often yielded a collection of obvious classroom ground rules like no yelling and raise your hand, mixed in with a few watered-down UU principles. We'd all sign it, throw it on the wall, and then promptly forget about it. I never felt like it really guided us. And the similarities in what we came up year to year, let me suggest once in youth group that we just reused last year's covenant, since no one new had joined. But no, we went through the same process of creating a definitely new and not at all similar one. I came away from those experiences with mild to moderate disdain for covenants and lumped them in with overly generic mission statements. I know, a bit reductive and unfair. I now see the value in having a mission statement, which serves as a goal to shoot for, and a covenant to back you up and guide you on how to accomplish that goal. But my old belief was born out of numerous times wordsmithing till the cows come home on things I didn't have opinions on or didn't even care about. And it felt all the more pointless when after all that work, nothing seemed to change. But that gets to the heart of something we want to explore today. Our covenant came out of a time of turmoil in the congregation as a way to hold each other accountable, and setting aside the fact that we've had a new minister or interim minister every couple years but hasn't considered to a sense of stability, at least for me, I feel like we have it pretty good now. So how do we remember to use our covenant when things are fine? It's all well and good to make a covenant intended to mitigate or handle disagreements, pat ourselves on the back, and move on. But when things get heated, our covenant goes out the window, and it can't just be something we say we believe in, but don't even use. I like to think that our covenant has helped inform how I act outside the 1 hour of worship on Sunday. It certainly helped explain what the heck being a UU is, something I've struggled with over the years. We don't have a holy book or commandments or even very religious songs. We use music from all over and even sing the Beatles song, for God's sakes. See, I just used the Lord's name in vain, but I'm not going to get excommunicated. And to me, it's just a saying. This lack of religious definition is something I noticed in 7th grade as part of neighboring faiths, where we'd go on various field trips to other neighboring churches. Learning about these religions made me question what we were. And attempting to explain to my friends, I'd be like, so you kind of can believe whatever you want. There's no God unless you want there to be one. We're not a church. Well, we aren't. We're a congregation or a society. And I know this is sounding an awful lot like a cult, but we're definitely not. Anyway, I still really don't know how to answer that. But I turn to the 7UU principles and our own covenant when I'm searching how to answer the question of what I believe and what we are. And that is all I can do. And maybe it will help guide you too. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Stuart Graves, a member of the Healthy Congregation team of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. I say all that out of courtesy, to let you know who I am, to identify myself. Every phrase and word in that sentence, from good morning to Stewart to Vermont, certifies me as a member in good standing of various cultures you and I may or may not share. Hold on to that thought. We'll come back to it. I was unable to attend the meeting at which this service was planned. So when I eagerly opened the email describing my task and read something like, "We know, Stuart. Why don't you explain to folks why our covenant makes us healthy?" My heart sank. How was I to explain that in a few words? But unexpectedly, for somebody who grew up in a nominally a-religious home, the image of a bothered and bewildered Noah building an ark sprang to mind. Reflecting, I realized that as a child, the word ark had evoked reverence and safety for me. Is it not wonderful to imagine somehow gathering up and rescuing all life, predator and prey together? But is that all we can say of covenants and health? That a covenant will let us survive the cataract, the season of our discontents, so that we may then go back to playing and working just exactly as we once did, as if nothing happened? I don't know if you have ever sat, and may you never, in that part of an oncology clinic where chemotherapy for cancer is administered. The person with cancer sits in a large, utilitarian kind of lazy boy with IV fluids running into them. If they are lucky, a loved one sits beside them. Once, I was sitting next to my first wife, who was in the lazy boy chair. Across the aisle was another woman in a lazy boy chair, with her husband sitting next to her. I had come from work and was dressed in slyly natty clothes with a hint of the professorial. The man across from me had on workman's jeans, not the fashionable kind, and a t-shirt. Emblazoned on that shirt was a large U.S. flag, an eagle, and the words, "I'll keep my guns and money, you can keep the change." We each knew immediately exactly what the other thought and what we thought about that. It is not an exaggeration to say that as we sat our respective 5 feet apart, we lovingly took to each other's heart. We knew then that we were each apart, each belonged to the family of life. Well, are covenants to make us a family? A place in which, if we're lucky, there is palpable love between one another, the kind of love that even imagining inadvertently harming our loved one causes tears? But what if the family member is somebody we don't like? Somebody who has done bad things, who has hurt us, or steals, or murders, or, God forbid, isn't liberal? What if, despite my best intentions and efforts, I cannot step out of the culture of Stewart, the liberal, and actually apprehend love for the other person, as my friend and I were lucky to do in the oncology clinic that day? What then? Well, does the FUUSB have a deal for you? Free of charge, covenants new and used, guaranteed to get you to act as if you don't belong to the culture you do belong to. Try it. You won't like it, but it'll grow on you. And when it does, you will be on our blue boat ark, and you won't be in the culture the boat has just left behind. 再见, y'all.
please join me in centering once more as we prepare to leave our formal worship and engage the broader world with the kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity we find with one another. We extinguish this chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again.
Our words of benediction. So let us begin. Let us go forth in the strength of our joy and the power of our compassion and begin our lives again today. This is what we are made for: to love the world, to care for one another, to learn one more thing, and to let it change us. May our lives be our prayer until we gather again. Go in peace.